For a team like the Phoenix Suns, and most especially for their new owner Matt Ishbia, it's hard to imagine a more emphatic way to prove to everyone around the NBA that you mean business than by trading for someone like Kevin Durant. Well, Phoenix for sure did give up a huge haul, which includes versatile forwards such as Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Jae Crowder, together with 4 unprotected first-round picks and 1 first-round pick swap. And without a doubt, a lot of questions would be asked anytime a team gives up a package that substantial, especially if the player being acquired is already 34 years old and has also dealt with a number of injuries over the past few years. But again, Phoenix knows that the only thing that matters here is that they actually acquired Kevin Durant. At the time of his injury in early January, Durant has just led the Brooklyn Nets to 18 wins over their past 20 games, while averaging 30 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists on an absurd 59% shooting from the field, 43% shooting from the three-point line, and almost 97% shooting from the free throw line within that 20-game span. In addition, Durant was also pairing wonderfully with big man Nick Claxton to carry Brooklyn's defense to a top 10 mark in the entire league. Overall, we're not just talking about your typical All-NBA current top 15 player being traded. We're actually talking about Phoenix acquiring a top 15 player of all time who's also currently playing the best two-way basketball of his career. But the good thing is, the Phoenix Suns aren't your typical NBA team either. They've actually been one of the most consistently successful ones over the past 2 seasons, reaching the NBA Finals in 2021 and winning a league-best 64 games last year despite losing in the second round of the playoffs. And even though they've taken a step back this year, the 5-man lineup of Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and DeAndre Ayton have still outscored opponents by 22.2 points per 100 possessions in the limited time that they were on the floor together. That ranks in the 94th percentile of the entire NBA. But now, even without Bridges and Johnson, replace them with the most portable superstar in the NBA in Kevin Durant, then add someone like Torrey Craig or Josh Okogie as the 5th starter, and special things are still bound to happen for this team. So what's good everyone, it's Rero Balls here, and today let's dive into how the Kevin Durant trade changes everything for the Phoenix Suns. But one sec, if you guys happen to enjoy this video, please do me a favor by hitting that like button. It only takes a second of your time, but it would be much appreciated. So let's get to it. I think once Kevin Durant returns on the court after the All-Star break, we should immediately see how his specific skill set would address a lot of the issues that confronted Phoenix in the past, especially during their playoff defeats over the past 2 seasons. Well, in general, I think the Suns relied far too much on Cp3's creation in the pick and roll, which unfortunately was slowed down by Dallas and Milwaukee in back-to-back years, as rangy defenders were able to take away Cp3's pull-up jumpers and passing windows when it mattered the most. Then on the other hand, Devin Booker and his signature scoring coming out of handoffs was also neutralized by the aggressive defensive schemes that Dallas employed during the second half of the conference semifinals last year. But now, with the arrival of Kevin Durant, all of those issues could easily be fixed. Devin Booker won't have to be the team's only legitimate scorer and not even their leading shot creator anymore. Plus, CP3 is still the point guard, but with Durant on the floor, Chris Paul can now drift into an even larger role as a facilitator without having to multitask as a full-fledged offensive initiator, which should hugely benefit him at this point of his career. Overall, Kevin Durant is simply an elite offense unto himself whose gravity as a scorer opens things up for everyone else on the floor, which means Devin Booker and Chris Paul are going to have the most open looks they've had in their careers with Durant on the court, which is actually scary considering that those two are already high-level shooters to begin with. This season alone, CP3 is launching catch-and-shoot three-pointers at the highest rate of his career while draining those shots at a highly efficient 53.2% mark, which ranks second best in the entire NBA, while Devin Booker's current 43.1 mark out of spot-up threes this season also ranks in the 74th percentile of the entire league. Well, for sure, the thing is, when star players have trouble playing with one another, it usually tends to be because they can't figure out how to share the basketball. But that shouldn't be a concern with KD in Phoenix. This season, Durant only ranks 46th in the entire NBA in terms of touches per game, but despite that, the .44 points per touch he produces still ranks as the 8th best mark in the entire league. Kevin Durant is just efficient like that. Once he gets the ball in his hands, there are no dribbles wasted. wasted. He's 7 feet tall with a high release point and elite touch that you just can't bother his shot most of the time. Overall, this season, Durant is shooting a career-high 55.9% from the field, but most importantly, his efficiency from the mid-range area of the floor should just further complement this Phoenix Suns team, who to begin with have already been the second-best mid-range shooting team in the NBA over the past 2 seasons due to the combined brilliance of Booker and Chris Paul from that area. This season alone, Booker and Paul rank 11 and 12 in terms of shooting percentage from the mid-range in the entire NBA. KD, though, is just on another level, as his 57.1% mark ranks first among all players who have attempted at least 100 mid-range shots this season. So basically, in the playoffs, where defenses are mostly focused on eliminating shots at the rim and from behind the arc, we can expect Phoenix to be just as dangerous, with 3 guys who are capable of creating shots from the mid-range at a really high level. But for sure, the Suns' offensive attack will most likely start with Kevin Durant, simply because there's no other guy who can counter defenses the way he does using his size and skill set. When he's guarded by a lengthy and jumpy defender, he's gonna use jab steps and rips until he gets his defender back to his heels. And when he switches to a big man on an island, he's still gonna be able to torch that guy with crossovers and behind the leg dribbles before getting his shot off. Here, you can see Durant receiving the ball right at the high post. He simply starts with a jab, but when Jarrett Culver moves his back foot just a bit, KD just casually launches and drains the long mid-range jumper. Then here, against a good defender like Jarrett Allen in isolation, you can see KD using a series of crosses and behind-the-leg dribbles before he gets to his spot and drains that 18-foot jump shot. Also, when a defender is too small for him, KD's just gonna post up and just easily hit a one-legged fadeaway, which basically can't be contested. As among all 37 players with at least 70 shot attempts from the post this season, Durant's 63% mark is actually the second best in the NBA, only behind Nikola Jokic. In this clip, watch how KD works on the post against Herb Jones. He backs his man down a couple of times before using his size and length to be able to launch his unguardable one-legged fadeaway jumper. Feed the ball to Kevin Durant, give him space to operate, and he's definitely gonna get buckets efficiently. During his past 2.5 seasons with Brooklyn, the 1.1 points per possession he produced out of isolation plays ranked second best in the entire NBA within that span of time, only behind Luka Doncic. But what's even more interesting is the fact that KD also excels in terms of playing off the ball. Just like Devin Booker, KD is elite functioning coming off pin downs, horns actions, and other sorts of off-ball screens. Both KD and Booker are dangerous when operating on the move, as both guys are known for their abilities to leverage their high release point when shooting jumpers against mismatches. In Phoenix, Mikal Bridges, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton have always acted as cogs to set up off-ball plays for Devin Booker from the elbows, while in Brooklyn, Royce O'Neal, Ben Simmons, and Nick Claxton have also served as either off-ball screeners or handoff operators for Durant. So I definitely expect the transition in terms of running those actions to be seamless, both for Durant and the Suns. Just like here, Chris Paul facilitates the pin-down action from the elbows. With Booker defended by Alvarado, he uses the pin-down screen from Okogie to get a head start into the lane, so now he drives and uses his vertical pop to easily drain the mid-range shot. Now here, you can see a similar action in Brooklyn. You can see Durant using the delay screen from Royce O'Neal to access the handoff from Claxton. Then Claxton sets another pin down to further stall Drew Holiday. Now with a lot of space, KD just easily pulls up against the drop coverage. Overall, Durant should be quite a simple fit for a lot of the Suns' existing schematic principles, so the offense should be just as good as advertised. But putting all of that aside, a huge reason for Phoenix leaving the playoffs the past 2 years without a championship is also their inability to play their best on the defensive end. In fact, they had a 114.3 defensive rating during the Dallas series last year and a 114.9 defensive rating against Milwaukee in the NBA Finals. Both marks were actually 4 points higher per 100 possessions than their regular season defensive ratings in those years. Basically, the lack of multiple rim protectors in the Suns' rotation has been a problem when trying to stop elite downhill attackers like Luka Doncic and Giannis Antetokounmpo. But now, the tandem of Kevin Durant and DeAndre Ayton should be able to provide a more stable backline for Phoenix. Kevin Durant is having the best defensive season of his career, and among his best qualities as a defender shows up when he's acting as a secondary rim protector alongside another big man. This season, when he's the nearest defender, Durant's limited opponents to 55.6% shooting within 6 feet of the basket, which is the 14th best mark among all players to defend at least 200 shots within that area. Well, sure, DeAndre Ayton isn't Nick Claxton in defense, but Ayton could now be more aggressive in terms of blitzing players right at the level of the screen, knowing that KD's right behind him as a help defender. And also, while Durant's not Mikal Bridges as a perimeter defender, KD's 7-foot wingspan and stable feet still allows him to sink off his man in the perimeter without removing himself from their line of sight. In fact, Durant has limited opponents to 0.88 points per possession when guarding them in isolations, which is the 6th best defensive mark among all 50 players to defend at least 125 isolations this season. To put it simply, Kevin Durant will be a total game changer for Phoenix on both ends of the floor, and the only thing left to do is to find the right combinations of players to put alongside him at any given moment. This should be an interesting task for Coach Monty Williams, especially now that he will have more options in terms of lineup construction with the team's addition of versatile wings like TJ Warren, Darius Bazley, and Terrence Ross. Still, whichever way you put it, the Suns' big four of CP3, Booker, Ayton, and KD is as good of a big four as anyone could ever imagine. And at least on paper, it's actually hard to find a team in the Western Conference right now who can outscore them while being able to prevent them from scoring at the same time. Which is why I'd say that when healthy, this Phoenix Suns team could easily get back to the NBA Finals. So thank you guys if you made it this far into the video, and let me ask you, what do you think is a realistic ceiling for this Phoenix Suns team with Kevin Durant? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this is Rero Balls, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.